Welcome back, everybody, to another video. This is going to be the first video that's not really a part of any series. I know we have the campfire stories, I know we have icebergs, and all different kinds of series on this channel, but I felt kind of restricted lately by all of those different things because there's some topics that just don't really fit into any of those, so this is just going to be the first kind of clear-bordered video. With that being said, today we're going to be looking into some of the most horrifying mental health disorders known to humanity. For pretty much my entire life, I have been deathly afraid of contracting some sort of horrifying mental health disorder, so I figured why not freak myself out even more and lose the little bit of sleep that I already get by researching them for days on end. Assuming you all are just as morbidly curious as I am, let's not waste any time in freaking ourselves out. Grab a snack, get comfortable, and shut the fuck up. There is a small chance that I took this samurai sword and slashed my camera trying to be funny, but I completely fucked up my camera. So we're gonna keep going, and I am now on my iPhone, and I'm gonna have to go buy a new freaking camera. So just start the fuck. Fatal Familial Insomnia, or FFI, is a rare but devastating genetic condition that strips its victims of one of the most fundamental human needs: sleep. It's one of only a handful of prion diseases, a set of neurodegenerative disorders caused by abnormally folded proteins in the brain. These misfolded proteins act as templates, causing normal prion proteins to misfold as well and clump together. These clumps grow at an exponential rate, leading to swift, progressive brain damage. Prion diseases can be inherited, acquired through exposure to infected tissue, or in a variant of the disease, can actually spark completely spontaneously, occurring without any warning or external cause whatsoever. They're characterized by rapidly progressing dementia, difficulty walking, personality changes, and other terrifying neurological symptoms. Fatal familial insomnia, however, is a specific prion disease which leads to the accumulation of these abnormal proteins, particularly affecting the thalamus, which is responsible for regulating sleep. Initially, individuals may experience minor sleep disturbances, but as the disease progresses, they end up losing the ability to sleep entirely. Now, I don't know how long you've ever gone without sleeping. Maybe you've pulled an all-nighter at a sleepover, but have you ever gone 2 days without sleeping? What about 3? What about an entire week? What kinds of things would you experience after that amount of time without any rest? How distressing would it become to simply exist? FFI progresses through several stages, each marked by increasingly severe symptoms. Initially, patients may experience mild insomnia and vivid dreams. This lack of sleep, however, will eventually lead to a variety of truly horrific symptoms, ranging from dementia to hallucinations, rapid heartbeat, excessive sweating, panic attacks, paranoia, new phobias, loss of coordination, and, of course, progressively worsening insomnia. All the while, due to FFI being a prion disease, the brain experiences significant neurodegeneration as the prion mass spreads, slowly breaking down the thalamus, located dead center in the middle of the brain. This lasts for several months before the victims are overcome by severe hallucinations and panic as a result of their lack of sleep. Horrifyingly, as the condition advances, victims eventually will face complete and total insomnia, leading to rapid loss of weight as well as dementia, where they become unresponsive or mute over the course of several months. The disease culminates in a vegetative state and ultimately results in death. Sleep is absolutely essential for the body to function. The disease highlights the critical role of sleep in maintaining human health and the catastrophic consequences of its absence. Researchers continue to study FFI in order to better understand prion diseases and to understand the mechanisms underlying human sleep. However, fatal familial insomnia isn't the only way for people to completely lose their ability to sleep. Ricard Siagian was a talented Indonesian artist, tattoo enthusiast, and father who had moved to Philadelphia in search of better opportunities for himself and for his son. He showcased his artwork and tattooing abilities on his YouTube channel. In 2015, Ricard developed a urinary tract infection. Like many individuals without health insurance in the United States, Ricard found himself in a difficult situation. Unable to afford proper medical care, he turned to his employer for help. His boss, in an act of misguided kindness, offered Ricard a bottle of unused antibiotics. The antibiotic in question was ciprofloxacin, a fluoroquinolone antibiotic commonly used to treat various bacterial infections, including UTIs. Sleep disorders are known to be a potential, yet relatively uncommon side effect of these drugs, with sleep issues occurring in 0.1% to 1% of patients. However, desperate to alleviate his symptoms and return to work, Ricard accepted the antibiotics and began the course of treatment. Within just days of starting the medication, he began experiencing severe side effects. In one of his early YouTube videos documenting his condition, Ricard described experiencing terrible headaches, back pain, and heart palpitations shortly after beginning the antibiotic regimen. Tragically, he was unaware that these symptoms were related to the medication, and Ricard continued taking the antibiotics, completing 13 days of the 14-day course. It wouldn't be long before he began to notice a disturbing new symptom: insomnia. As the days progressed, his ability to sleep deteriorated rapidly. In a video posted on January 7th, 2016, Ricard revealed that he had been suffering from severe insomnia since August of 2015. He described his condition as total insomnia, where his body craved sleep, but his mind wouldn't allow it.
I have not sleep. Means I have total insomnia. Right now it's already 4 months, and this is not sleeping difficulties. This is not regular insomnia. So it's been 4 months, and my body is deteriorating right now.
This video marked the beginning of Ricard's public documentation of his struggle with what he believed to be a form of fatal insomnia. As weeks turned into months, Ricard's condition worsened dramatically. He experienced a range of debilitating symptoms beyond just the inability to sleep. In his videos, he detailed severe pain throughout his body, particularly in his back and spinal cord area. He also reported cognitive decline, extreme fatigue, and a constant feeling of being on the brink of sleep without ever being able to actually cross that threshold. I've covered this a few times on here already, but probably around a year ago, I was struggling heavily with anxiety-induced insomnia, as I'm sure many of you also have. For those of you who haven't experienced a prolonged inability to sleep, it really does bring your mind and body to a complete halt. Through that, though, I never went more than like a maximum of 2 nights without sleep, and even that was really pushing it. So I cannot even fathom what it would be like to go a week without sleep, God forbid, months. One video in particular, uploaded 4 months into his ordeal, showed the man visibly exhausted, explaining that he hadn't slept for 120 days straight. The toll on his physical and mental health was evident. His speech was slow and labored, his eyes sunken and surrounded by dark circles. Despite his deteriorating condition, Ricard maintained hope for a cure and used his platform on YouTube to reach out for help. In another video, Ricard expressed his desperation, stating that he would gladly sacrifice both of his legs just to be able to sleep for 3 hours a night. As his condition progressed, Ricard sought medical help. Doctors prescribed him sedatives in an attempt to induce sleep. Initially, these medications allowed him to actually sleep for about 2 hours per night, albeit with severe nightmares. However, even this limited relief was short-lived. After a few months, the sedatives stopped working entirely, and Ricard found himself back in a state of complete sleeplessness. Throughout his ordeal, Ricard continued to document his experiences on YouTube, creating a haunting record of his decline. His videos were, at their core, an anguishing cry for help. In one of his later videos, Ricard discussed his attempts to understand the root cause of his condition. He speculated about damage to his pineal gland and other potential causes, pleading with viewers and medical professionals to use him as a guinea pig if it meant finding a cure. This video is particularly heartbreaking as it shows Ricard's awareness of his deteriorating condition and his desperate search for answers. Eventually, a doctor from Beijing reached out, claiming to have treated a similar case successfully, leading Ricard to excitedly set up a GoFundMe page to raise money for travel and treatment in China. Despite the potential risks of experimental treatment, Ricard was willing to try anything for the chance to recover and continue raising his son. Tragically, however, Ricard was unable to raise sufficient funds for the treatment in China. His condition continued to deteriorate, and on December 9th, 2016, approximately 16 months after the onset of his symptoms, Ricard Siagian passed away at the age of 47. It appears likely that severe neurotoxicity or central nervous system disturbance caused by the drug led to Ricard's total inability to sleep and his eventual death. In his final videos, Ricard expressed hope that his experience would contribute to medical knowledge and potentially help prevent similar cases in the future. While his wish for a cure was not fulfilled in his lifetime, his struggle has certainly raised awareness about the potential for severe adverse reactions to certain antibiotics. In the suburbs of Johannesburg, South Africa, a young 12-year-old boy named Martin Pistorius lived a life full of curiosity and promise. Martin was fascinated by electronics, envisioning himself as an electric man who could manipulate circuits and create wondrous machines. His world was one of endless possibilities, filled with the laughter of friends and the warmth of a loving family. In 1988, Martin's life took an unexpected and devastating turn, beginning seemingly with an innocent sore throat, which sent him home from school. However, unexpectedly, Martin's condition, instead of fading away, began to rapidly deteriorate. He stopped eating, began sleeping almost constantly, and disturbingly began to experience difficulties in communicating. His parents watched in terror as their once vibrant son slipped away from them. Once things started to become alarming, they searched for medical assistance. Doctors diagnosed him with meningitis and tuberculosis of the brain, but these labels did little to accurately explain Martin's profound decline. Nobody knew for sure what was actually happening to him. As his body weakened, he lost control of his muscles and became a prisoner within his own flesh. The prognosis was grim. Martin's mind, they said, had regressed to that of an infant. His parents were told to take him home and wait for the inevitable end. From then on, he entered a twilight existence, trapped between life and total oblivion. For years, he lay motionless, fed through tubes, bathed and dressed by others, assumed to be in a vegetative state with no awareness of his surroundings. His family's world shrank, revolving around his care, their hopes for his recovery dwindling with each passing day. What no one knew, what no one could have imagined, was that Martin was awake. He indeed had slipped away for some time, but several years into his illness, somewhere around the age of 14 or 16, his consciousness slowly floated back to the surface. At first, these were just fleeting moments of awareness, but gradually they expanded until Martin was fully aware of his surroundings. This might have seemed miraculous, but paradoxically, this was only the beginning of the horror for Martin. He could see, hear, and think, but he couldn't move a muscle or utter a sound. He was a ghost in his own life, invisible to those around him. Martin endured the agony of hearing his mother, in a moment of despair, wish for his death. He suffered through endless reruns of Barney and Friends, the purple dinosaur becoming a symbol of his torment. Martin was a victim of locked-in syndrome, a neurological condition in which all voluntary muscles in the body become paralyzed and the individual inside remains conscious. Essentially, victims remain awake inside of a comatose body. They retain essentially all of their cognitive functions, including the ability to see, think, hear, and feel, all the while everyone around them has no idea that they're present. For nearly an entire decade, Martin existed in this state of silent screaming. He developed coping mechanisms, learning to disassociate from negative thoughts, finding solace in observing the small details of his environment, the movement of the sunlight across a room, the growth of plants, even the drying of a wet floor. His mind became his prison, but he endured in what ways he could. This went on for 10 years, nobody knowing that he was still inside. Instead, his family grappled with the idea that their son was in a vegetative state, gone forever. All those years later, one of Martin's caregivers noticed something in Martin's eyes. Seemingly a spark of intelligence that others had missed. She encouraged his parents to have him tested again, and this is when they made their miraculous, yet horrifying discovery that Martin was still inside. The primary cause of locked-in syndrome is damage to the brainstem, specifically to an area called the pons. This crucial part of the brain serves as a relay station, transmitting signals between the cerebral cortex and the spinal cord. When damaged, it disrupts the neural pathways that control motor functions, effectively severing the connection between the brain and the body. The most common cause of this damage is a stroke in the basilar artery, which supplies blood to the brainstem. However, other factors can lead to locked-in syndrome, including traumatic brain injury, tumors, infections like Martin's cryptococcal meningitis, or neurodegenerative diseases such as ALS. Once diagnosed, the focus shifts to establishing communication and improving quality of life. New advances in technology actually allow individuals to control computers with their eye movements or brain signals, enabling them to communicate, browse the internet, and even control their environment. Martin, amazingly, would go on to write a memoir titled Ghost Boy, where he discussed his experience being locked inside of his own body. What horrifies me most about this condition specifically is that we really don't know how prevalent it might be today. There are almost certainly people out there who appear to be in a vegetative state or in a coma who are silently suffering inside of themselves, completely aware of everything happening around them. Cotard syndrome, also known as Cotard Delusion or walking corpse syndrome, is a rare neuropsychiatric condition characterized by a belief that the victim themselves is dead, does not exist, or is decaying. This disorder can manifest in various forms, including the belief that specific body parts are missing or that the individual is immortal. Individuals suffering from this condition may refuse to eat or engage in self-care due to the belief that they do not need sustenance or that their body is no longer functional. Research suggests that Cotard syndrome may be linked to lesions in specific areas of the brain, particularly the right hemisphere, which is involved in self-perception and emotional processing. One of the most disturbing cases of Cotard syndrome is that of Mademoiselle X, the pseudonym for a patient whose case was documented in the late 19th century. Mademoiselle X was a young woman who began exhibiting symptoms of severe depression coupled with nihilistic delusions. She became increasingly convinced that she was dead and that her body was in a state of decay. Despite being physically healthy, she insisted that she had no need for food or water, believing that her body had already succumbed to death. This self-neglect escalated to the point where she became emaciated and her physical health actually began to rapidly deteriorate. She articulated a belief that she was condemned to eternal damnation and could not die a natural death, reinforcing her refusal to engage in life-sustaining activities. Mademoiselle X was so convinced that she was dead that she completely stopped eating and ultimately died of starvation. Yeah, this is sure to be a fun one. So these brain-eating amoeba, known as Naegleria fowleri, are a species of microorganisms that are typically found in warm, freshwater bodies. Lakes, rivers, hot springs, well water, poorly maintained swimming pools, and the water in moist soil are known to potentially contain the organisms. However, they have also been detected in residential hot water tanks, household pipes, and even tap water, though these cases are exceedingly rare. The organisms are known to find their way inside healthy children or young adults who have been exposed to water contaminated with the amoeba, entering through the nose. From there, the amoeba invades the central nervous system, makes its way through the nasal tissues, and eventually finds its way inside of the skull, where it begins to feed on the nerve tissue. All it takes is for a single amoeba to enter into the brain this way for the victim's chances of fatality to reach nearly 100%. The amoeba will swiftly begin reproducing and migrating to other regions of the brain, consuming brain cells. The disease this amoeba causes is called naegleriosis, and yes, if you become infected, death is almost invariably inevitable. Symptoms usually manifest between 1 and 12 days of exposure, and initially resemble that of meningitis. Some of these early symptoms include fever, nausea, vomiting, and loss of appetite. As the infection progresses, symptoms can include stiff neck, loss of balance, and confusion, before escalating to hallucinations and seizures. The disease progresses extremely rapidly. Often within a matter of days or weeks of first noticing symptoms, victims will fall into a coma and eventually pass away. The amoeba is often associated with human-made or disturbed habitats where it can flourish due to reduced competition from other organisms. I was actually reminded of the disease when I came across this video on Instagram, and yeah, this is exactly the kind of situation where you'd expect to get some kind of horrifying brain disease. The worst part about that video for me is that water is so stagnant that it kind of looked like solid concrete, and I'm not gonna lie, if I was in that situation, I might have just walked right into that water. Now, this one in particular caught my attention because I'm almost positive that we actually encountered this delusion before on one of the Campfire Stories episodes. In one of these stories that somebody either sent me a long time ago or that I found online, I'm pretty sure somebody said that their father believed that they were actually an imposter pretending to be their son despite their completely identical appearance. Well, as it turns out, this is actually a known mental disorder known as the Capgras Delusion, where an individual believes that a specific person, usually someone close to the individual, has been replaced by an identical imposter. The underlying mechanisms of the Capgras delusion are not fully understood, but it is believed to result from a disconnection between the brain's facial recognition system and the limbic system, which processes emotions. This disconnect leads to a situation where the individual can recognize a familiar face, but does not experience the usual emotional response. As a result, they experience an uncanny, unshakable feeling that the person in question is not who they say they are, despite the physical resemblance. Again, we've covered stories of people who thought they saw doppelgangers of family members before, and whether you believe these stories or not, you have to admit the idea of seeing some person or thing trying to fill in the place of a close family member has to be extremely disturbing to the person experiencing it. For this reason, the Capgras delusion can have a profound impact on interpersonal relationships and the emotional well-being of both the sufferer and their family. In another documented instance of the delusion, a 74-year-old woman going by the name of Mrs. D for privacy reasons became convinced that her husband had been replaced by another man. Despite recognizing the other family members, she absolutely refused to sleep in the same room as her imposter husband, and even asked her son for a gun for her own protection. This case in particular highlights the potential for a breakdown of familial bonds as the sufferer's reality diverges dramatically from that of those around them. The specific causes of the Capgras delusion remain unclear, though it is often linked to brain damage. It can also manifest as a symptom in those with schizophrenia. Imagine you see your family members together one day, but one of them seems off. Perhaps your mother or father or sibling. Imagine that despite the logical part of your brain telling you that it's impossible, you simultaneously know for certain that they are not who they appear to be. Somehow, some way, they have been replaced by an identical doppelganger. What would you even do in this situation, assuming that the delusion was unshakable, undeniable? It was something you felt deep within your bones, and something you invariably knew to be true. Well, several different studies done on the delusion have highlighted several horrific outcomes. One analyzed 2 separate cases of psychotic sons who actually killed their own mothers after developing the Capgras Delusion. In these instances, the delusion was so strong that their children actually believed that their mothers had been replaced by imposters. Another study in 1989 examined 8 individuals with the Capgras Delusion, revealing alarmingly violent behaviors. One patient shot and killed his father, while others threatened or physically attacked other family members, who, again, they suspected to be strangers, somehow impersonating their loved ones, trying to take their place. And with that, we bring today's video to a close. I hope you enjoyed. And if you have any other ideas for these new standalone videos, which can really be about anything haunting or disturbing, be sure to drop those in the comments.